Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. So the numbers are very clear. The rise of EVs continues despite a tough first half of 2022. And it looks like we will see more than a doubling this year in EV sales and probably next year as well. But with an exponential growth like that, something else has to give. Those 15 plus million plugins we will see sold this year will not be on top of everything else. It will be on behalf of something else. And we know that that something that has to give is the ICE industry. But when most legacy automakers are still above 90% ICE sales, this will have a huge impact on them already this year and could already next year be devastating. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. The two respected energy forecast agency OPEC and EIA seriously said in 2016 they thought there would be about 100,000 EVs sold in 2022. Then they raised their target in 2017 to about 2 million after ARK Invest said they believed that the EV market would reach about 17 million in 2022 and about 3 million in 2020. Others thought they were crazy, but we now know that their forecast of 3 million in 2020 was very precise as the plug-in market was about 3.2 million. All these numbers are including plug-in hybrids, as many are also using them as a stepping stone to get to the full electric vehicle. And we are going to look at the collapse of the ICE market. So every hybrid that will be sold will also take sales from a pure ICE car. And eventually the hybrids will go away and all the buyers will just go for fully electric vehicles, BEVs. But in these predictions from OPEC and IEA and ARK Invest, they are all just talking about EVs, so I do believe that includes hybrids. So ARK Invest was very, very close on the 2020 numbers, and two of the other respected energy forecast agencies were so far off they didn't even hit the disc. And it looks like ARK Invest will be very close again on their predictions for 2022 of 17 million plug-in vehicles that they predicted back in 2016. And OPEC and EIA with their 100,000 and then 2 million units forecast for 2022 should be ashamed of themselves. So this is also why when it comes to this disruption of the car industry, we have to do our own research or look for guidance by someone like ARK Invest that actually work with disruption and innovation and get how these things play out. Because regular forecasting agencies get this so embarrassingly wrong, we can't use their numbers for anything else but to show how wrong you can be if you don't understand the exponential growth of a disruption. So the plug-in market is going to grow at an exponential rate. This is not speculation. We can see it happening right now from 2020 to 2021. And again, even though with all the problems the car industry has been facing here in the first half of 2022, we can see they are still on track to at least doubling the plug-in sales in 2022. And this means that the ICE cars are as good as dead, because we don't see a rise like this without consequences. Something has to give. So in 2020, we had about 63.8 million cars sold and about 3.2 million were plug-ins. In 2021, 66.7 million cars were sold and about 6.7 million were plug-ins. Statista thinks that we will hit pretty much the same overall car market size again this year at about 66.9 million, but plug-in will probably go from 6.7 to maybe as high as 17 million this year. So if the plug-in is taking up 10 million more units in sales, but the car market stays the same, the ICE car sales will drop about 10 million. Something has to give, right? That is about 15% that the ICE market will drop here in 2022. Funny enough, that is also what GM is down with here in Q2 in their total car sales in the US. 15%. So a good showcase because GM is still like 98.9% ICE cars, so only about 1.2% of their sales in the US were electric. And as long as their ICE sales continues to be this high in percentage, they will lose a lot of sales because the ICE sales is the one that has to give away for all the new EVs. That GM is still not really a big player in, even though they think they are leading the way. And we can see that the battery production for the EVs is also seeing exponential growth right now. Panasonic was one of the biggest players, but has not been keeping up with the likes of LG and CATL and BYD for that matters in terms of growth. But the production is shooting straight up because they know they will sell every single battery they can make. And as we can see here, last year there was about 300 gigawatt hours made for the automotive industry. But Tesla's first target for Berlin and Texas battery production is about 100 gigawatt hours each. So Tesla plans to add 200 gigawatt hours to that pile of batteries for the EV industry all on their own. And Tesla has been making all the moves for the last 5 years to make sure they could also get the materials for this fast growth. So I have no doubt that they will be able to do this. So what Tesla has planned all on their own is to make a big rise in the battery production numbers over the next couple of years. But everyone else is also ramping up, and so is the mining industry. But if it comes a bottleneck for Tesla, they will go into mining to solve that problem. They don't want to get into mining, but they will do it if they have to, if the mining industry cannot keep up. Just like Tesla started making their own full self-driving computer chip because Nvidia could not keep up. And Tesla started designing their own batteries because they could see that the battery manufacturers could not keep up with the growth Tesla wanted to do. And if the mining companies can't keep up, Tesla will solve that problem as well. But we are also seeing a lot of mining companies starting to open new mines, like the ones we talked about before in Darwin in Australia, that will start soon to deliver lithium to both Ford and Tesla. And we have seen old mines starting to reopen because everyone knows they will be good business, as they would be able to sell everything they are able to dig up from the ground. And some of the big boys are waking up and trying to get in on this action as well. Volkswagen just announced it will invest $20 billion to build electric vehicles batteries, a move the company says will create 20,000 jobs and generate about $20 billion in annual sales. The automaker will create a new company called PowerCo to oversee the effort that will manage Volkswagen's entire battery supply chain, from research and development of new technologies to the mining of the raw material to end-of-life recycling. That news was announced at a groundbreaking ceremony for the company's first battery plant in Salzgitter. So great move from Volkswagen, and will be exciting to see if they will be able to pull all of this off in time. And someone like the battery manufacturer Northvolt, Volkswagen's old partner, has also just raised $1.1 billion more for more battery factories. Everyone is scrambling to get a piece of this pie. So yes, materials is the limiting factor, but it will not be slow just because it is the limiting factor. As we can see, the growth from 2020 to 2021 was not slow. They more than doubled, and we are seeing a more than doubling in the EV production this year as well. And I do believe we will see a doubling again next year. Then it might start to slow down a bit as more mining has to come online, but the damage for the ICE industry will be felt already next year. If we see a doubling this year, which is almost certain, and then a doubling next year as well, because if this is the case, we are talking about a 30 plus million EVs already in 2023, and if the overall car market stay the same, that is 30 plus million ICE sales that has to give. already next year. And we see this play out right now, just like in the US car market, where we have Tesla that is the only pure BEV maker with high volumes, and they are growing like crazy while everyone else is pretty much down, and someone are like falling off a cliff here. And the US car market was of course not hit by the lockdown in China, and Tesla did not really export any car outside of North America, so they were able to grow more than 50% in Q2 and was also up over 40% in Q1. And Tesla did fall to 64% EV market share in Q2 2021, but in Q1 2022 they were back at 75%. And we are of course waiting for the numbers for Q2 2022, but this is just crazy. They grew in market share even though all of the competition is coming. That is really a testimony to just how fast Tesla is growing. They are outpacing the rest of the competition in the US. Just nuts. But that is not really the problem for the old guys. The problem for them is that their cash cow will soon be cut in half. As we just talked about, 30+ million EVs will probably be sold in 2023, or maybe just, let's say, 25 million to keep it just a little conservative. Well, that will still be about 40% of the entire car market. So the big boys that are still above 90% ICE sales will lose about 30 to 40% of their cash cow, and at the same time lose money on the EVs they do sell, as Ford CFO just told us last week that Ford no longer makes money on their EVs. What will this do to a company if they suddenly lose about 40% of their sales? It will be devastating. But Lars, if the big boys are not making a lot of EVs, who are making all of those 25 to 30 million EVs by 2023? Well, that will be Tesla, of course, and the Chinese. And of course, the big boys, they might not be huge numbers, but they will easily double their numbers this year and next year because their numbers are still very small. But China will also double because they are pushing hard. Not just the auto industry, but the whole government is behind them and pushing as hard as possible to make sure that China will become a big player in the new car market, because they missed out on the old ICE market. And we do see that the US market is actually getting some momentum now. They have been lagging behind, but its market more than doubled here in May, and that is actually just BEVs, not all plug-ins, so that is very impressive. Yes, Europe is not that high in May, but remember, we have a war going on here in Europe that is affecting so many things, and Tesla's Shanghai factory had a lockdown in April, really hurting the amount of cars Tesla could get to Europe. And because Tesla is such a big player here in the European market, it does have a big effect for the entire market, as I talked about before. So I think we will see Europe pick up again in the next coming months. But globally, we can see that the BEV market, so not including the hybrids, are up 77%. So even with a very difficult first half of 2022, the rise of the EVs continues and is still rising very, very fast despite all the problems. And that means something else has to give. And that will be the ICE industry that is collapsing right now in front of our eyes. Just here in 2022, I do expect the plug-in vehicles to take about 25% of the sales from the ICE industry. 17 million units out of 67 million units market. And everyone that is still producing mostly ICE will feel this drop. And next year, it will hit about twice as hard. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.